Alright everyone, welcome back. I say welcome back because of course we had a stream on Thursday where we were doing something kind of similar. I'm really excited to start this. I've been kind of anticipating this for weeks. Actually, I'll be honest, I've been anticipating this for months. So, to start the story at the beginning where it belongs, I wrote... Oh, this is an outdated version of the rulebook. I've just realized. Where's the... It doesn't matter. I've written a journaling RPG called the Game For Scribes. And on Thursday's stream, which should be available in the VODs if you really want to go back and check it out, we played a full year of the game's gameplay, but the game's gameplay in a journaling RPG is only part of the fun, and I have been looking forward to the other part of the fun for months. We are going to start the actual journaling part that comes with this game. You don't have to be nearly this elaborate. The fun thing with journaling RPGs is you can be as elaborate or inelaborate as you care to be. And I guess really quickly, I just kind of want to show this off. I made this earlier in the week. It's got some flaws. It actually needs to be rebound slightly. I've done some of the thread work wrong, and I'm going to correct it, I've decided. But what I've done is I've taken some nice watercolor paper that I know plays nicely with all the inks and watercolor paper, or watercolor pencils I like to use. And I've found a little 80-page journal for us to use for this purpose. So, this is, if you're familiar with bookbinding, this is obviously in preparation for case binding. This will eventually be a hardcover notebook. But like I said, I've made some kind of significant mistakes with the thread work, so we're gonna have to... I'm going to have to redo the thread work, which is easy. Nothing is glued yet. But that actually won't stop us for today. Because today, we're really just interested in working on a few of the first pages. I have the results of last year's gameplay, or not last year's gameplay, the result of Thursday's gameplay, which was the first sort of year of the game. And we're going to turn this information, which doesn't really look like much, into a story. And some of the folks who were here on Thursday might remember that I was feeling a little sort of blindsided by the gameplay. I wasn't really sure what story to tell. And because this is a very confusing result. We set out with, like, if we just look right at the very first line, we set out with a fair amount of resources, but not a lot of sort of public trust in our leadership. Then we immediately encountered a significant martial barrier. We never really established what that martial event was, but the first card we drew was the Devil, which of course is anything from like an invasion by hell of the material world, you know, a dragon to slay, an army to deal with, that kind of thing. And we achieved victory in that. We actually did really well. But then immediately, the very next thing that happened was that our initial ruler died, and their spouse, which they had just married the month before, took the throne and ruled for the rest of the year. And on Thursday, I was not feeling very charitable about this. For those of you who don't know, I'm a fiction author. I write a lot of stories where nobody can trust each other. So of course the first story that popped into my head was the idea that perhaps our initial ruler's spouse had done something untoward to them, sort of married them to try and hijack their success, and then had them disposed of, which I like. There is a story there, right? Bold Knight, what's his face, gets out into the world and achieves this minor victory, marries a camp follower. The camp follower poisons him, takes over his leadership, and honestly, she did a fairly decent job, whoever this woman was, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a woman. We don't have to start with my assumptions, which was that the first ruler was a man and the second, his spouse was a woman. Like, we can play with that as well, but she did a fine job. So, and I think that was part of kind of what was shaping my narrative, is like, this is clearly someone with some guile, some storytelling ability, or not storytelling ability, but some leadership ability. But then I had a brainwave this morning. I think that what we actually saw happen, even though it happened in two different turns, I think it might be a more interesting story, certainly a more romantic story, if what we witnessed in the first place was a deathbed marriage. Because this almost sounds like this doesn't fit the very, very letter of the story engine, but what it really sounds like to me is that our heroic leader, who by their very nature is a military commander of some kind, they come out and they win this victory, but I like the idea of that victory being Pyrrhic. Or however you pronounce that word. I think that in the moment they slew the monster, and we're going to have to pick that monster eventually, they also were struck a mortal blow. And while there was time for them to marry, and the person they married is certainly very capable in terms of ruling from there, I like that better, I think, than like an immediate month one betrayal. And like, both are perfectly valid interpretations of the data we have, which is sort of the joy of working with a system like this, is that the story beats you're given as a player, in my opinion, are vague enough that you can massage them into whatever state you want. So what I see instead, I see an immediate victory followed up with the death of the original ruler and their successor, who essentially inheriting the people's faith in their original leader, and that faith being conferred upon them through that marriage of, like, this is going to be the last thing I do. It's extremely important I make it clear that this person is my partner, they have my trust, and they will take care of you as well as I would have done. And then when we go down the line of like other events that happened, we have a swords event, 1, 2, 3. We have a couple swords events, so there's clearly some combat still occurring in the lives of these people. But then we mostly have like fairly ordinary events. The only thing that stands out as being unusual is the Empress, which is a natural disaster, which happened toward the end of the year of some kind. But we didn't make much headway, probably because of that setback. So what I think the most important thing to nail down immediately is we need to actually make some of these names permanent. There was a lot of me changing names on the fly as we played the card game. Anyway, so I'm going to start, I guess, by picking out a name. And I need some scrap paper. This'll work. I was going to write out some names. I'm still keeping with the idea that this is some sort of very minor Bostonian noble house, so I'm just going to pick some names from the existing canon. Just to kind of help me wrap my head around it. The one thing I know for sure, I don't think these are the hard gates. I was originally going to... Well, actually, they still could be, couldn't they? I could make them the hard gates, and then I won't have to put a ton of work into designing a brand new coat of arms just for the purpose of this playthrough. And what I could do... Well, no, because these guys are going to end up way more powerful than the hard gates are supposed to be in the end. So, we won't. We'll make this a new family. There can be more than one family of plucky aristocrats in Bostonia. There's obviously Sealy and Unsealy. Skywatch. Bastion, although we're definitely not playing a Bastion. Picking names is hard. This is the hardest problem in computer science, too. What I actually need to do is if I look at, like... Bostonian place names. Bostonian settlements. Oh, I didn't tag enough of them with the... maybe the map would actually be more useful than the wiki for this. Let me bring up... where would it be? The under reference... Pictures... Nope. Home... Projects, writing, Wisteria, world building, maps, Wisteria Continental. Oh, no, that's actually the old one. I want this one. Whoop. Oh, I didn't really name any of them besides. Like the biggest capitals. Okay, that's fine. Back to the wiki we'll go. So let's think about this a different way. A lot of these are eponyms, right? We've got Hardgate, Cold Water, Skywatch. And for some reason our big fascination, like the big thing we were trying so hard to make happen building-wise was an observatory. Like that was the first thing we felt the need to construct. Just kind of cruising my wiki for inspiration and I can't find any. Let's see. I don't like Mooney, but that invokes a thing I don't care to invoke. Tell me about the moon. Wikipedia. Probably should have made my mind up about this before going live, but... Oh, Slen! That's perfect, actually. Okay, so this is going to be House Selen. So now we need a pencil, which is rare for me. I don't usually use that much pencil anymore. Need a pencil and some rulers. Now this is actually one of those things where I'm considering that my life would be easier if I took this apart now. So what I've done wrong, I might as well talk about this here. What I've done wrong is I only kind of half-stitched everything. You're meant to repeat the stitching pattern kind of going back through the way you came so that it appears continuous. Actually, where's the good... that it appears continuous rather than like only having been stitched the once. And I did not do that because I did not fully understand the written instruction. And also, everything's just a little bit looser than it probably should be. I'm going to try, though, I'm going to see if we can get our little Illustrator's T-square to play nice. And if I can, I'll take it. Yeah, it looks like that'll work for values of work. Two and a half, and then 3/8 makes the middle. David, do you want about American customary units? You can at least do the math in your head sometimes. Sometimes also my life is made easier by doing this. Overthinking. Overthinking warning. You know, for heraldic purposes, that's not really correct. It's actually something I thought would be a cool thing to do since I was like 12 would be like get involved with something like the SCA as kind of a scribe or herald. We're going to be painting over most of this, so it's not entirely essential. Not sure if 4B pencil is quite the right thing to use for ghost lining, though. We'll see. Nope. Too sharp. Too sharp. I think so. I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna call these guys House Selene, or Celine, however you feel is correct to pronounce it. And I'm gonna make their arms really simple. I'm gonna put a sun, or sorry, a moon on a field. But in order to do that, I would need to be able to draw a circle, which is shockingly hard to do with an audience. Oh, I wonder. A washi tape of an appropriate size. It's an appropriate size for the inside. It's another fantastic example of, like, if I was on Inkscape, I could draw this in 12 seconds, but since I'm in meat space, I need a little help. Too big! Damn it. You know what? I might take it anyway and just make the shield a little bit bigger. Put an awful lot of faith in paint to cover up my mistakes. This is a fantastic example of how sometimes your artistic ambition might outstrip your actual skill. Because the other thing I could have done... Oh, hell with it. We'll stick to what we did. No. No, we won't. I want the smaller one. We'll keep the shield slightly bigger, but I want the smaller moon. Oh, boy. I really should not be using a 4B for this. I should be using the hardest pencil I got, which I think... So the problem I'm going to find myself having is that watercolor does not do white well. It's not that it doesn't exist, it just doesn't really do a great job at it, so I guess we're going to see. Yeah, I like that. I like that much better, actually. Okay. Alright, so here's hoping we get away with it. Once I start painting, we're committed to the bet. I'm actually going to try and clean up as much of these eraser marks as I can first, though. I'm also going to change the year we were in. I was picking a year kind of at random, and I used 1530 something to be roughly concurrent with the events of Entangling Vines, which is a novel I'm writing. But I don't think that's actually necessary. Okay, you know what we need? It's a paper towel. Alright, I'm about to do something incredibly stupid. I don't know if you can see it, but there are in fact a beverage and the forbidden water present. How long before I drink the forbidden water? It normally works better than that. I don't know why that failed so hard this time. Let's try that again. Kind of new to watercolors. They're not my favorite medium. When I was a kid, my parents worked for a couple where the husband's family were fairly well off, and his mother, my friend's grandmother, taught me how to oil paint, which is a fundamentally very different discipline. This brush is falling apart already. It's brand new. I do have a better brush somewhere. I genuinely might grab it. The problem is it's a bit finer. There is another watercolor pencil technique that you can use that I might try. Ooh, that's really wet. That's too fucking wet. Oh, look at all these bristles coming off, man. This pencil is not fit for purpose. Okay, there's another technique that we can try. We're not doomed. That looks god-awful, right? But, and excuse me, I'm gonna have to get the better brush, because this brush is just garbage. Oh shit, and I thought I knew where it was. I thought it was with my studies for another piece, and it's not there. Guess I'll just try this one. So what I'm going to try doing is hopefully, this might not work, but I'm hoping I can kind of move this out. Yeah, that actually sort of works. I'm shedding bristles still. Because these paintbrushes I bought from a local vendor aren't that great. And I'm being kind of, like, to be wildly fair about it, I'm being kind of rough with it. So my goal now is to just kind of spread this color out as much as I can. If I'm stuck with a bad result, maybe I'll go over it again in acrylic later. So I don't really advertise it much because it's not, like, it's just for me, it's just for fun. So it's not a marketable skill that I'm trying to convince people, like, oh hey, you should support me in my effort to get good at this. But I have been practicing sort of watercolors as they apply to calligraphy, and practice you may or may not be familiar with called Illumination. And one of the skills I'm trying to develop in that regard, of course, is the painting. And one of the goals of Game For Scribes was to give me lots of opportunity for practice. So we need to let this dry for a minute, and then we're going to outline. Yep. Drank the fucking forbidden water already. It's been, what, 12 seconds? Unfortunate that it's kind of streaky, but it might end up looking good in the long run. It looks better on camera than it looks in person. So I guess I'll take that. We do need to let it dry kind of thoroughly, though. I will say this about watercolors, as long as you're not being too silly, they at least dry pretty quickly. Oops! Calligraphy pen's been empty this whole time. Well, that's fine. It's another second or two to dry. So, for a black, I've been using This Carbon Black by Graf von Faber-Castell. It's alright. It's a decent black. It bleeds pretty badly, but on the watercolor paper, especially with it being this heavy, it's not at all problematic. My only concern with it is that it takes ages for it to dry. Like, we are going to have to basically blot this piece from time to time, which is fine. And this, of course, is just let me make a calligraphy pen, and I'm using their 1.5mm stub tip on it. Which I picked out to match this parallel, which is actually not a match at all. They have quite different line weights, but it's close enough. Oh boy, I hope I'm moving this right. I really want another piece of paper towel. None of it's perfect. None of it's ever going to be perfect. But a party still wants to try, right? I would really like to see what someone who's genuinely good at this in all the ways that I am not could do with this game. Like, I'm just a hobbyist doing his best. I'm literally doing this for the sake of practice, right? Circles are the hardest shape to draw. I've done this to myself. And other lies Patch tells himself to feel better about the messes he's making. There! The arms of House Selene. So again, we have to let this dry for a minute. I'm actually gonna build a kind of improvised blotter. Blotting with paper towel is not the universe's most effective strategy, but It's the one I often use. Gonna have to do. All right. So now we're kind of back to pencil marks. Right. It's a little messy, but we're gonna make do with it. So I need to practice with the pen here. Yeah, there wasn't much point in drawing these lines if I wasn't actually going to root myself on them. This pen's going dry, too. Oh, were we on an ad break that whole time? That's fine. There, could you say some more detail regarding this project of yours? The writing looks amazing. Well, thank you very much. I'm just learning. I have created a... Where did I put the rulebook? I created a journaling RPG over the last couple of years called the Game For Scribes, where you... basically, in the shortest version, you take a tarot deck and the rulebook, and you take the sort of job of being the scribe and the ruler for a little, like, fantasy medieval kingdom. Well, it doesn't start as a kingdom, but it can grow into being a kingdom. So on Thursday, we did a whole year, like in-game year worth of gameplay, and I took like bullet form notes of what we achieved, and today I'm kind of setting up the journal, an example of like what the journal could be. Obviously you don't have to be extra about it, but I went on a rant early on today that I'm really excited to finally get to do this. I've been looking forward to doing the journaling part of this for years, so I'm really excited to just kind of share that and work on it with everybody. I'll put the bot command in to put in a link to more info about the game. So what I've done is I've badly bound it. It needs to be rebound, but I've bound up some watercolor paper, and now we're just doing sort of beginner's calligraphy. I'm having some trouble with my pen because I'm not used to writing on this paper. This particular paper is very heavy and it's got a lot of tooth. But it's an excuse to practice black letter calligraphy. It's an excuse to play a game that I've been working on for a couple of years, and it's a fun way to spend a Saturday evening. When you have I have a highly technical job, and when you have a highly technical job, the lower tech your office. Oh, dude, no, you're being too kind. I appreciate it, but I really do have maybe a total of like 20 hours of practice with calligraphy. The pen is doing 80% of the work. Like, it just helps that it's a fairly chisel-tipped, not chisel-tipped, but broad-tipped pen. That's all. I can actually share the site where I learned this lettering style from. But that's very kind of you to say. Thank you. The merchant faithful subjects of the... What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Crown. Capital C is a very funny letter in this script. Oops. That was a capital L. Yeah, I thought it was weird. It's not that weird, but it's a lot closer to like the British pound sign than how you would normally write a capital L. Also, somehow, I see what I've done. Yeah, that'll work. Now, of course, because this ink is carbon black, we have to sit here for 10 minutes and wait for it to dry. If I was smart, I would have bought an India black instead of a carbon black. The difference is nitpicky, but the performance of the inks is incredibly different from one another. Also not entirely correct to use paper towel for blotting, but it's what I have. Not to put too fine a point on it, but I'm trying to do this kind of on the cheap. Where'd my phone go? I need to step away for a moment to get a cup of tea anyway. I'll be right back. How many pages per stack did you make? I'm going to fill them all in with this calligraphy style. This entire booklet, bound up, is going to be 80 pages, like as folded. So it started out as, I think, 25 sheets of paper. Yeah, 25 sheets of paper, and they're folded into signatures of 5. That doesn't make sense. It might only be 60 pages. But yeah, I'm eventually just going to fill it. I did the thread part of the binding incorrectly, which is why I haven't glued it up yet. I'm going to have to take it apart and redo it. But I left it together for today just to see if I could get a feel for how annoying it would be to do the calligraphy in a bound book. And it seems to be fine. It's a really heavyweight paper. It looks like there's more there than there is. Oh, and the term you're looking for is signature, I think. If you're referring to... Oh, cool, it came apart! Lovely! Well, I suspected that was a possibility, and it indeed happened. But if you're referring to this unit as a stack, that's called a signature. And I think the term for the whole thing together is just text block. So now we have to sort of decide, I guess, the layout of the journal. This is the thing I always find difficult with journaling RPGs. So, and part of it is each game gets its own answer. Like if you're playing Dreadfair, where did I put Dreadfair? If you're playing Dreadfair, which is a fantastic game, but it's about being one person adventuring, you know, as a like Lovecraftian horror protagonist would adventure. But this is a history, so it's almost tempting. It's almost tempting to maybe try to start putting together like a family tree. But that doesn't necessarily need to be like right in the first spread. Alright, I gotta take this apart before it damages itself. So I guess I'll just take the top one off. Oh well. That might make life easier too, though. So what I had done, I did not do the stitching correctly, so it just wasn't strong enough to maintain itself. I kind of knew going into today's stream that I was going to have trouble with that. But the question... Now I'm worried about damaging the print on the desk. The question that emerges for us now, though, is... Yeah, oh, at the end. That's actually brilliant. Yeah, I think you're right. So what I'm going to do, I need to take a brief break of like 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to put myself up on my BRB screen. And I will be right back. But then when we come back, we'll start recording the first year's history. We'll pick what the first year was, and we'll start recording the history. Because I haven't picked the year number yet. So, welcome back, everybody. Now, as I sort of hinted at, the gameplay itself generates history, right? But I don't think... Like, it would be incredibly tedious, at least the way that I'm doing it, to literally record the events of every month in history. Even if you just did, like, a bullet point of each month, because you've already done that at least once. I think what would be more interesting is to see what the story of the year kind of was. And for us, that's pretty, like, obvious, right? We remember, if you'll remember from Thursday, or if you're new, I'll explain it again. We had, right out of the gate, the very first event that happened was the Devil event, which essentially means that we had to fight some kind of, you know, if you're up for it for your setting, supernatural, or at least, like, legendary opponent of some kind. Right out of the gate, too, right? It's the very first event we drew. And then the next thing that we had happen was the death of our initial ruler. Right? That was the very second event. And it says right in the rulebook that you don't have to think of the turns as months. Right? They're just subdivisions of the year. And what I was hinting at the beginning of the stream was, I think these two events are related. And we knew... I forgot to write it down, but we remember, because it was just 2 days ago. We got married on that turn as well, so... I think the more interesting thing, because the rest of these are all, like... a little bit of conflict here. Kind of a crop paralysis there. We had some disease outbreaks. And we had that big natural disaster. So actually, I think the best thing to do would literally to be, like, lay the year out on these 2 pages. And honestly, I think we could get away with laying the year out on this page alone. And then on the obverse, maybe an illustration. I think that'll be suitable. So I'm going to go ahead and create the lines in this journal. I do wish I had... Where'd my square go? And I'm going to try to give myself a decent bleed because I think I want to trim this book too. I don't have the tooling to do it just yet, but I think long term I would like to. Stop, Patch. You're not ambidextrous enough to do that. If you wanted to get really, really, like, absurdly fancy with it, you could actually... what am I trying to say? You could go, like, full Illumination style. I don't know that I would bother for this. Maybe if an especially epic event were to take place. Like, maybe I should have actually for the very first page in the journal, but... But we'll get there when we get there. Is the moral of my story. That's an unfortunate starting point. It could be easy connecting. Yeah, super. Exactly. So the two events came from card draws, but they were on two separate turns. So there's a few different ways you could take it. I was in a darker mood on Thursday, and I was thinking like, oh, clearly, after his big victory, he thought he had picked out an advantageous marriage, but then his spouse-to-be was actually conspiring and had him killed in order to, you know, take the seat. So it's a question of... It is a storytelling game, but it tries to... I tried to write it in such a way that it only gives you the loosest bones of a story. Because it's much more interesting as a GM, and I am like among my squad, so to say. I am kind of the forever GM. It's more exciting to have the vague outline of a story so that you can roll with it a little bit. Boy, I did not expect to just be getting to this point at 2 hours into the stream either. Sorry, everyone. I like it way better as a result of as a side effect, basically, of killing whatever this enemy was. We're now stuck with you know, the outcome we got. So the way real scribes would have done what I'm doing now was with either like silver point or little pieces of charcoal instead of ink. So I'm thinking for future pages, I could even kind of fold a replacement page now. I might not do the red. I'm used to writing on the red lines because of how I set up my my draft pages for another project, but I don't know, something about this doesn't really look right to me. We're gonna experiment with it throughout the entire run of the book. It does not have to be consistent from one page to the next. It wouldn't have been in reality, right? Because you're gonna have different scribes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If there had been anything else later in the year that pointed, like, actually, So the thing that happened immediately after the death turn was a swords event, which means more conflict, basically. Like, you could interpret it both ways. You absolutely could. But I think, just thinking, because this number stayed high, this virtue score, which is like the faith that the populace has in the ruler, stayed high. If this number had fallen, or like we'd done poorly at the swords event, I would almost consider the possibility that, like, yeah, okay, they tried this like blatant takeover and then it sort of backfired or something. I think I'm going to stick with the plan of having it be the more romantic version of the Meltdown. I just need to pick a year, which can literally be any number, but I'm going to end up looking at... I think I'm going to just say 1205. 1205 sounds good. Yeah, they can be built into the story as well. So what this sheet is, and it's kind of not optimal. I might redesign it because it's just a free download for people. But it's sort of like the ledgers of your resources. I mean, it's all storytelling. Anything, like, you know this as a GM, that like anything can be included in the storytelling of a game if you try hard enough. And it's very much deliberately left up to the sort of the interpretation of the viewer. So yeah, I'll just do like 1205, I guess. That's what I'll pick, just for the sake of it. Thank you for the follow. Doesn't really look very black letter. Oh well. Now, in theory, this should happen. You came here for the bookbinding and you'll stay for more than that. I appreciate it. I do a mix of this and some, like, higher tech stuff earlier in the week. So you're by no means obligated to drop by, like, every time I'm live, but if I'm going to keep doing this game for sure. Let's see. I'm just kind of picking a name out of the setting book here. All right, wonderful. I'll be glad to have you for sure. Okay, this pen is definitely out of ink. I don't know why I'm insisting on continuing to work with it when it's out of ink. Let me fix it. No. No. Yep, India Red is what I use in the parallel. Bone dry. Look at that. Oop, that didn't work. I kind of hate refilling this one. It was not really... It's not actually really designed for use with the converter. I've kind of kit bashed a converter onto it. And it's just really hard to... It's really hard to refill it without making a mess. I think the way they intend you to work with the parallel pens is to syringe refill the cartridges. But who the hell has time for that? So what was I doing? I was doing Last Frosts. This writing's getting messy. Which is allowed. Do you stream much, Fortison? And did I even come close to pronouncing your screen name correctly? I pressure myself. Too much pressure for me to do this kind of stuff. Fair enough. I don't know, I have a hit or miss relationship with it. I try to just remind myself to do it for fun. I'm sure everybody would like at least once in their lives to, you know, do something like this professionally, but that's a lot of work. How should I put this? Goodness, my handwriting's getting messy all of a sudden. It's like I lost my nerve. What's a good monster for this? I kind of want something sort of generic, but I don't want to drag. What is... Monsters... Ooh, that's an interesting choice. Hmm. Oh. Salamander could be kind of interesting. Forever GM, but mostly for friends and stuff. And since last year, you decided to work with the community a little bit more. Now doing one-shots to introduce new people to the hobby. Yes! I love that. I love it. I run what I can only describe as a one-shot campaign for a game called Traveler. So what I've just kind of done is I keep inviting people to join the group. And then when there's enough people put together that want to do an adventure, we'll do a one-shot. Yeah, let's call it that. Why not? I need to turn that bot's frequency down. It's starting to annoy me. There was a new rulebook for Traveler put out in 2022, which is the version I play. But the game and its setting itself go all the way back to the 80s. And it's just some, like, classic, sort of retro sci-fi flavor. A lot of very famous, like, more modern science fiction properties are either claimed to or actually were, like, people's favorite Traveler campaign turned into a story. Like, there was a rumor going around that that's basically what Firefly was, and I believe the writers collectively known as James S.A. Corey have admitted that that's what the first novel or two of The Expanse kind of was for them. Or at least that's where, like, the original cast of characters came from. The folks like Garvey and like Jim Holden and all, like the core cast basically were effectively. Oops. That's a pretty bad typo. Oh well. Want the red back. Character is going to get a name based on what letter I feel like practicing. Boy, that's not correct at all. What is happening? There we go. My hand's starting to cramp. Render Country Traveler was only popular in the 80s and 90s, and now it's a myth here. Yeah, most people I've met that I play it with either had never heard of it or had heard of it way back in the day. Like, I didn't realize until I got vaguely interested in it that there was a modern version of it either. Boy, I sure hope I left myself enough room for this. Something strange is happening with my hand. Okay, well that at least gets the early chunk of this history out of the way. So let's see what the next event should be. There was a weird issue with... I wrote Min, I think that's King of Staves. Nothing really happens, though. So that's a harvest, basically. Minor conflict that we appear to lose. So we have some crime. King of Wands event, which we... here to win? There's a plague late in the year. I guess it doesn't have to be a plague. It could be a landslide. Storm. I kind of like the idea of it being a plague, though. Actually, let me double check what the Empress is supposed to represent. It might not be. It might be limited to like natural disasters of the weather and geography type. Empress. This card is a natural disaster, but not the mundane variety represented by the disease outbreaks of cups or the crop failures of staves. Volcanoes, tsunamis, storms of legendary ferocity are her domain, and one has struck you. I mean, that happened pretty late in the year. There's a reason monks wrote 1 to 2 books almost their entire life. Yeah, that's true too. It is much harder to write by hand than it is. And, like, this is not a time-efficient style of writing. Did we succeed at that event? Yeah, looks like we did. So let's grab show me an E. I haven't looked at a capital E in a while. Oh, of course, it's a god-awful letter. But I think we can make it work. Yeah, that looks like an E, roughly. We're a little fuzzy on the screen though. Come on, focus. What's happening is I'm losing daylight, and it becomes very dim in my office very quickly. And then all of a sudden the autofocus doesn't know what to do with itself. So, parallel's just a little bit wet. I think... It's not like I'm going to get rid of this parallel pen, but I think long-term, as a calligrapher, I'd like to just get a second one of these and fill it with the red. What, am I out of black already? Or did it just die? It may have just died. 1 second. Really? Oh, no, it was full of black. Great. Pen just died. And then I made a huge mess trying to fix it. Somebody made a journal like that. It was a prop, big bad enemy guy. Journal, leather, handbound, coffee stained pages. Oh, that sounds so great. That actually genuinely sounds great. And yeah, it's just so time consuming. But this is a skill I really want to develop, so I guess I have to spend a couple hours at it every now and then, you know? Yeah, I'm losing the ability to write, actually. How long you train this calligraphy style before you started this journal? Maybe a total of 12 hours. Maybe a little longer. There's a couple other like tiny projects I've worked on. I'm kind of trying to continue training it, but the problem I'm having now is I'm kind of rushing. So it's making me sloppy, which isn't great practice. And I'm spilling tools all over the floor because it's getting dark and I'm not seeing what I'm doing. I'll probably have to hand off coming pretty quick here. I'm trying to write at close to my normal writing speed, which is not what I can actually support and still do this style correctly. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I might have to stop here pretty quick. You can see that, like, the lettering hasn't been really consistent in size. And that is a major problem for this style. This style was typified by very very crowded but legible writing style. But again, the whole point is like, this is a brand new little kingdom, so it's not like they're hiring the best calligraphers to go out with them. The entirety, if I get out the relevant paperwork, the entirety of this kingdom is like one farmhouse and one little castle. So it's not exactly a wealthy area. Full immersion excuse. Yeah, fair enough. Plus, you know, being kind of sucky at something is step one to being kind of good at something, right? So. Surprised I haven't found a way to cram my head into the frame yet. Almost foreshadowed my head for like 2 minutes. Yeah, it's a little bit of a crowded workspace here. And again, as it's getting darker in here, I have to... I wonder if I can... Well, that's better for me. It's not really any better for the camera. I think I actually wrote down a potential spouse name. I might keep it. Where did it go? Here it is. But it's also an A. I'm not going to do that many A's. I haven't done an F in a while. Literally naming characters by who's got the most fun letter to write. Alright, and that really does kind of summarize the full year of history, too. Like, obviously, 13 turns happened, right? Because that's how long a year is. But nothing really major, like, you're not going to record the construction of each individual farmhouse, necessarily, in your main history. So yeah, that puts us in position to. I just need to fix. Oop. That one has gone dry. $12:05. All right. So yeah, now next time, if I so chose, we could play another year. What I might even do, just because the gameplay itself, I think it's kind of tedious. We'll play it by ear. We'll let people vote on it. But what I might do is play my years throughout the week, and then just spend my Saturday streams fixing things. I just need another piece of paper towel. And then I suppose we're gonna go off and we're gonna raid somebody. Let's see. Are any of my usual people around? I don't normally... This particular stream date and time is new for me, to a certain extent. So no, none of the people I would normally raid are online. But let's see who else is doing stuff in Makers and Crafting. Lots of people. Popular category. Got some soldering stuff going on, which is fun foreshadowing for Tuesday's stream. That is a decent reminder for me to plug that on Tuesdays I do work on my virtual pet that I've been building for years now. Right now I'm doing a mixture of working on the firmware for that and like redesigning the hardware. So that is something completely different. But I don't know. None of my usual people are here. And a lot of my usual categories are damn near empty. I might end up actually, since it's getting dark and I need to run around and stuff before the absolute end of the day, I might end up just ending stream instead of raiding today. I think that's reasonably appropriate. But for sure, we'll pick this back up next week. I think that's a lot of fun. So thanks for stopping by, everyone. It was good to see you.